Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our wonderful guest, Josh Tapp. And today, Josh and I are going to be talking about how you turn each of your podcasts into ideal client magnets. And I want to share some things about Josh. He is the host of the Apple iTunes Top 25 Marketing and Entrepreneurship podcast, The Lucky Titan. And he has worked with over 1,000 of the world's top entrepreneurs, discovering their most coveted business success secrets and then sharing them with the world. His company, Podcast Multipliers, has helped over 750 entrepreneurs and counting to launch, monetize, and scale their own industry-leading podcast, and has generated millions of dollars in sales for his own company, Podcast Multipliers. Leveraging the podcast multiplier method, Josh has closed multiple six-figure deals, purchased a multi-million-dollar business with no money down, and given a keynote speech in front of a group of billionaire tech investors on the power, I should say, of podcast multipliers. Josh loves to share his simple method on how to get an additional 10,000 to 50,000 eyeballs on a business each and every week, even if you have never, ever posted on social media. And he gives away the entire process for free. Oh my gosh, Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. It's funny, I always like hearing your own bio. I'm like, I don't even know if I wrote that. I don't know who wrote that one. But I appreciate
It's
it. I'm glad to be
it's
here.
like, woohoo, look at all I've done.
Like, oh, that person's cool. Oh, wait, that's me. Woo. Good to be here. I'm
Uh,
really excited to be here with you, Lynn.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, we've had several conversations, and I've had the honor and pleasure to be on your show. And I'm so glad that you're finally here on Claim Your Career Crown. And I just want to say before we get started, for anyone who is joining us for that very first time, hey, make sure you don't miss a single episode by subscribing to Claim Your Career Crown wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love what we're doing, please give us a 5-star review. We would very much appreciate it. All right, Josh, I know a lot more about you than our audience, so I'd really like you to sort of give us some more background about what inspired you to get started.
Yeah, well, so I'm going to be one of those weird stories because I'm actually a fifth generation entrepreneur. And so a lot of people look at that as, oh, Josh, you were just bred to be an entrepreneur. And my wife says that to me all the time. She's like, I don't want you to indoctrinate our children and make them have to be entrepreneurs. um, but for me, I had a father he was not as successful in business as he had hoped to be, but he was a very successful person. And he, from an early age, he really got me excited about learning and starting businesses. And so in my house, it wasn't, hey, Josh, you need to go to college, right? I never even knew what college was, to be completely honest with you, until my junior year of high school. I had a career counselor go, hey, are you going to go to college? What college are you going to go to? I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I wasn't planning on going to college, right? I did end up going to college, but I did end up starting my first business in college as well. And at the end of the day, just to kind of give you my backstory, is going through college, starting a business, and really just having those big ups and downs. I was trying to start an agency. I found that for myself that my strength wasn't really in running companies. My strength was in networking with people and helping connect them over ways that they could grow and be better. And I had a mentor of mine who was like, Josh, just start a podcast. You're listening to them all the time. You do a great job, and you love people, so go interview people. I'm like, sure, why not? But what he didn't tell me was the added benefit of having a show is that you can go from meeting with sub-level business leaders, not that there's anything wrong with them, to literally Warren Buffett, Grant Cardone, these top name people, and become friends with them by just bringing them on your show. And that was really where my career started taking off, was when I launched my first show.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. And I will say that some of the other people, they're the best kept secret in their industry, and they just haven't been able to tap into that success. And I know that you obviously have developed, you've cracked the code and developed a process for creating this type of success by leveraging podcasts. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you do this and what that process looks like?
Yeah, you bet. When most people look at podcasting, they look at it as, okay, I could build an audience, I could monetize it somehow, maybe through sponsors or something. So how can I get to 1 million downloads as fast as possible? And if you ask any other top podcaster, we have a mastermind with a few of us, and we just laugh at this all the time because everybody thinks they need millions of downloads to make money. But I was literally closing six-figure deals from my show before I had even 5 downloads. No word of a lie there. So it's pretty cool that you can leverage an asset like this to actually A, make money, but B, get to know the other people in the industry. And so my methodology is actually, it's not even a methodology, it's exactly what we have done. And I had about 2 years ago, I was running a mastermind where I was teaching people how to monetize their shows without using sponsors, because we're actually about to start taking on sponsors, but I've been doing this for like 8 years without having a single sponsor and making plenty of money doing it, right? And so when we look at it that way, it kind of allows us to switch our paradigm up and say, okay, how do I approach this in a way that actually is scalable, right? So for us, what we did is I had this mastermind teaching people how to monetize their shows, and people were coming to me left and right, like, Josh, how did you do it? How are you actually making it work? And so I was like, well, what if I just do it for you, right? So we built an agency that's Podcast Multipliers, which is where we actually take and scale out their podcasts. And the methodology is actually really, really simple. So when people look at monetizing a show, they always think I've got to have a bunch of numbers. But the truth is that every conversation you have with somebody is a potential sales opportunity, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
mean you have to be out there throwing your business cards and pitching your service to every single person you talk to. But if you're in a room with Warren Buffett, you better as heck find a way that you can continue this conversation in a partnership, right? And he's more than willing to do that kind of stuff when he meets with people, right? That's the sort of thing that you want to be thinking about when launching a show, right? Is you've got all of these different people who are ready to work with you. But then the second thing is that building an audience is just a numbers game, right? In our world today, there's 10,000 different ways to build an audience. But the truth is, I don't actually sell to my audience very often, right? I use those numbers to make a really good guest want to come on my show and to show that we can do what we can do, and then they want to hire us to then become more visible. So the methodology is this, right? Monetize correctly. That's the first thing that I would say is you need to have a monetization model that's selling high ticket products and services. But then what we do, and this is what I'd recommend, I actually have a whole free training on this. It's not even you don't even need an email address. You just go over, I've got all the videos, the SOPs, everything you need to actually leverage this. Just please don't do it yourself. Hand it to a team member. It's way too much work to produce your own show. But
Yeah.
this is the exact method that we use to get anywhere from 10,000 to 50,000 people seeing an episode right off the bat. So what we do is we basically say, okay, how do we get as much content with as little time from me, right? Because I can't be out there all day, every day with a videographer like Gary Vaynerchuk following me around. I am not that cool of a person. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not that interesting. 90% of my day, I'm sitting right here, right? And then I'm at home with my wife and child. And so being there with them, I don't want somebody videoing me or whatever, right? So you don't need to feel like you have to be constantly producing content. What I always tell people is saying, hey, get to where you can do one a week. Spend 1 hour a week creating content. And if you're smart, you'll just bundle it once a month and just spend a morning once a month, and that's all you have to do. But then what you do is you take that hour where you're either interviewing somebody or maybe you're just sharing your opinions on something. I would highly recommend interviewing because that allows you to do networking. But you've created one good long form piece of content. And then what we do is we then take it and we say, okay, can we turn that into, we've got an audio and a video. So why don't we have a YouTube video? Why don't we have an audio podcast? But you also have the option to actually look at it and say, can I turn this into a blog, right? Can I
Yeah.
make this written content? Those are the three big ones. If you can get all three of those pieces of content, nothing else matters. Okay. I tell people that all the time is don't get so caught up in I've got to have 1 million followers on Instagram. You can't monetize enough from 1 million followers on Instagram to make it worth your time. I'm just going to throw that out there for people. People look at influencers, quote unquote, and they think that they're making hundreds of millions of dollars, but the average YouTuber who is in the top tier, getting like 10 to 50 million downloads, isn't even making $1 million a year. Okay, so just want to throw that out there. It's the same thing with podcasters because they're going about it the wrong way. So you don't need to be so concerned about the content being out there. But when you're doing high ticket sales, right? So let's just say you're selling a coaching program or you've got some sort of agency model or something. you want to be able to have clout, right? Have that credibility that people, whenever they look you up, they find really valuable content. So what we do is we then have our team take it, and we take the video, the audio, and the written piece of content, which that can be show notes, blog posts, whatever you want it to be, and then we subdivide that up into a bunch of really small micro content. So that's quote cards and captioned videos and whatnot that can go on social media. We have zero intentions of boosting those posts, spending a bunch of time and getting a ton of views. Like if you went and looked at my LinkedIn right now, we have like something like 15,000 followers, I think. I get like one or two comments, if that, on my
Yeah.
content. We're not concerned about that engagement, right? But having it there every time that I have somebody who is interested in podcast multipliers and they see my face, they Google me. And my LinkedIn is one of the top things they go look at. They can go see all of my content, and it points back to podcast multipliers or whatever we're selling at the time, right? So that's the basic methodology, right? Is increasing your credibility by having all of this different content out there, and it becomes a numbers game at that point. How much content can you put out? How many people can you be interviewing? Getting them to interview you, right? It's very, very simple. It's a very simple strategy, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I, I know that what's one thing too that's really cool is the relationships that you're able to make and the connections that you're able to have. And, those types of relationships and being able to build that rapport, you cannot put a price tag on
No,
that. And so
no,
I think that's one of the most intriguing things. And I really like one of the things you said about one thing that could hold people back. So, I mean, and there's some really pretty dynamic stats out there, 26% of the podcasts on Apple have one single episode. And
right.
so one of the things you really have to think about is to start a podcast, does that fit in with your sales and or marketing strategy and or your relationship strategy? How is that going to serve you? And I passionately believe that podcasts serve every business. I mean, from what you just said, I mean, the increase in your credibility, the SEO value is just phenomenal. I mean, just like you said, Google yourself. The
Right.
advantage of actually speaking in someone's ear and telling them about, just giving them some education and helping them move forward in their business and career. And you're giving them that gift when you deliver real value to the episodes. But
Yeah.
for some people, I think this could be something that could hold them back in the sense of like, well, what does this exactly look like to take it on?
Yeah. Well, and the thing I always tell people too is don't get so dependent on a platform, right? Because what you're saying, is people get so intimidated by our strategy because there's so many different pieces. I do not ever want anybody to go out and do anything more than one platform. And I'm not the kind of guy who's going to say podcasts are going to be here forever and there's never going to be anything better, because that's the famous last words of every person who tries to master a single platform, right? I'm I don't really care what the platform is, right? But we're doing old school techniques, marketing techniques that always, and sales techniques, they always work, right? I mean, Lynn, you would agree with this, is the more conversations you have with your ideal client, the more sales you're going to make. Would I be
Yeah,
wrong in saying that?
absolutely. When you approach it with worthy intent and you genuinely desire to help and serve the people that you're
Right.
talking to. Absolutely.
I love that. That's a really good point. um, but what I always tell people, right, is like you don't have to be as concerned about being the best or being everywhere, or all these different things. I watch people all the time. They open their phone, they download Anchor.fm, which is a free app to run a podcast on, and they have Zoom calls from their phone with potential or with their guests, and that ends up going for free onto their onto to anchor.fm, right? They have an entire business for free at that point, right? Isn't that, it's like that's just the part that blows my mind, is I think people overthink it, right? Is that don't get so concerned about platform strategies. In fact, I just interviewed a guy right before this for my show, and we were talking about the state of podcasting and where it's going. And he shared something that I really loved, because he and I both predicted the downfall of oh my gosh, what's the name of the platform? Clubhouse, right?
Uh,
Everybody was like, you've got to get on Clubhouse. You're going to make millions of dollars. And everybody kept telling both of us, hey, go over there. But the truth is, the platform is inconsequential. And I'm not going to go try to build a whole new platform, right? And what happens with most entrepreneurs is they're told these things over and over again by Gary Vaynerchuk and Russell Brunson, these people. And not that there's anything wrong with them, but they're speaking to a general audience. when in truth that most of you listening to this don't need to be on more than a single platform, right? Build one first, build a community. Once you have that community, you can then take them anywhere you want, right? They're on LinkedIn, they'll follow you over to Facebook. They're on Facebook, they'll follow you over to Instagram, whatever, right? That's the value of having an actual group of people that you care about. And then the other thing that drives me batty about this is people think they've got to have millions and millions of people in their audience to make any amount of money. But what I was telling people is like, make it your goal to every single day to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody who would be your either ideal customer or your ideal partner. I guarantee you, if you open up your LinkedIn, you could book 45 meetings within 2 minutes. You have all these people who are available to you, even if you have 45 connections. Reach out to each one of them and be like, hey, can I interview you? I'm going to turn into a podcast at some point, but I'd love to interview you just to kind of pick your brain, see the state of the union, right? I always tell people, it's like, just tell them you're looking to see what's happening in their industry. And don't pitch them. Don't pitch them. Just bring them on and talk with them. And if you do this every single day, right? Just make it a 1 hour or a 15-minute practice every single day that you do with somebody, you'll watch that you're going to start gaining an actual following because they all know you. You do this for a whole year, you have 300 followers who know you. And I promise you, if you go back to that list and you say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm trying to sell XYZ. Do you know anybody who might be interested in that? And out of 300 people, 10% of them are going to say, well, I do. I need that. How about I hire you, right? That's how we end up seeing businesses grow. And I think people are just overthinking it of like, oh, I need websites, I need funnels, I need social media presence everywhere. It's like, no, you just need to know people. Just start meeting people and then watch what happens. It's such a beautiful thing. And I can't beat this into people's heads enough. It's like, just simplify it. Don't overdo it.
Yeah, well, that absolutely sounds like something that can be holding people back. And I love your approach to that. And I truly also concur that having the conversations and building that rapport and that connection, that is the long-term benefit of having those relationships that you can go to them, not only to tell them about a new product or service that you're going to be offering, but also, uh, you know, if you are having some kind of challenge and you want their opinion, or have they gone through this before, how did they solve it? They are a resource in a fount of ways, and they can also provide you with referrals. Who do you know?
Right. Yeah.
So that's all brilliant. And I'm just sort of curious, when you were going through all this, was there ever anything that held you back?
Oh, 100%. I got caught in the trap of how do I get leads for years, right? I knew I could sell for my podcast and whatever. I was like, okay, I'm using my own strategy. But up until about 3 years ago, I was constantly chasing the next white rabbit strategy to get more leads into my business. And the truth is that revenue generation is not complicated, right? Getting new leads and closing more deals is not a complicated process. You need to pick something and stick with it, right? But what I was not paying attention to is that I was doing this podcast. I was meeting with people and I went and looked at I use Acuity Scheduler. Some people use Calendly or whatever.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I had over 1,500 people I had talked with over like 3 to 5 years, right? 1,500 because I was saying every day I'm going to meet with different people, right? And I looked at that list and I go, that's 1,500 people that if I asked them with sincerity for something, they would probably at least do their best to help me figure it out, right? And that was kind of that game changer moment for me when I realized, oh, I don't need to sit here trying to chase down new leads. I have them, right? I just need to figure out what they need and then give it to them. And I just want to kind of caveat this also with a story because we had when I started the Lucky Titan podcast before this one, I had 3 other podcasts, maybe 4. I think I might have 4. It's been a lot, but all the different podcasts I've had, right? I never tried to interview anybody making more than like $1 million a year because that was where my mentality was like I couldn't interview somebody more wealthy than that. But when I started the Lucky Titan, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go big. I'm gonna try. I don't know any of them personally, but I'm gonna do my best. So I went on my LinkedIn and I just spent hours and hours going through posts and seeing like who's the person who posts the most, right? And I had this guy I was following. His name was Josh Tapp. We shared the same name, so I was like, okay. And I'm a very introverted person. I know it doesn't come off on camera, but I'm good on the one-to-one, but group settings, I'm like hiding in the corner. But I reached out to him on LinkedIn and I was like, I found out he's making like he's multiple 8 figures at this point, a marketing agency guy, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna get the courage. I'm gonna send him a message. Send him a message. He responded in 2 seconds. I was like, hey Josh, I'd love to have you on my show. I'm a brand new podcaster, but I think it would just be so awesome for my new audience to have you come on my show. And he goes, great, Josh, let's do it. I love that we share the same name. Boom. And now I've done business with him in multiple different facets, but I bring him on my show. This guy is a multiple 8-figure earner, but he's helped me land so many clients. We've worked together on many different things. But from that one interview, he referred me 50 people, and all of them were making above $100 million. Okay. These are his clients, big names, right? And that got me in the door. It was the craziest thing, right? And I want people to think about it that way, saying, I had no listeners. I was like, you're my first guest. This is my brand new show. Please come on my show, right? And I thought I had to beg, but they're just so kind and so giving and willing to give. People just don't. I think we have this weird vision of what the wealthy look like, act, think. But the truth is if you've messaged one in the past, they didn't message you back. It's not because they don't care. It's because they don't look at messages anymore, right? You've got to find something that sparks their attention. And bringing them on a show, giving them the opportunity to brag about themselves is ultimately what gets them onto your show. And gets you into their world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great story. I love that story and how you can make that connectivity with people. And
Yeah,
for anyone who's thinking, and also I just want to say that you don't have to go after the Garys and the Oprahs and
right,
whomever else. There's other people that are out there that they're going to be ultra connected and be able
right.
to give you those same and that's one of the things you can do is you can also ask, you know, who are 3 people you think I should interview,
Yeah,
and can you make an introduction for me? So
and they
um,
will.
yes, absolutely. And you not only should you ask about you can also ask what other shows have you been on that you think I would be a good fit for. Could you make an introduction to the host? Because if you're a podcaster, you should be doing both. You should both be guesting on shows and doing your own show.
100%.
In
I'd
fact, I
agree with
would
that.
think that for people first starting out, my recommendation is that you do start with guesting because it's not as heavy a lift. And especially for small entrepreneurs or solopreneurs, they can get out there and be a great guest, deliver a wow for the audience and value. And then make sure you close the whole loop. For goodness sakes, promote the heck out of that episode that you
Right.
appear on.
Yeah,
Because it's not only going to help the host, but it helps you because it improves your credibility and who you are and be your authentic self. Just show up as who you are and have fun, right?
yeah. I
So,
love that. I've never thought of that actually. Like start as a guest. Why not?
yes, yes,
It helps you
absolutely. It's
find
the
your voice, I'll tell
easiest.
you that much.
Yeah, it's the easiest. And what's so funny is I actually was doing a podcast for almost 2 years before my first guest spot. And here I'd been doing the podcast. And my first guest spot, maybe it was only a year. Who knows? Who cares? It's a long time ago. But my first guest spot was cringeworthy. The first 15 minutes was terrible. I was so nervous, but that's okay. I mean, I got through it. And the next show I did a lot better, like a thousand
Right.
percent better. Now I can just drop of the hat, go on a show, and what do you want me to talk about? you
Right.
know?
You don't even have to
And
prepare because you're like, I've got my stories, I've got my frameworks, right?
yeah, but the whole point is like anything. Remember, I want everybody to remember if you're afraid to try this, to get out of your comfort zone, when you learned how to ride that bicycle, how many skin knees did you get or elbows? For me, a chin. But I kept getting back on that bike because I wanted to be able to ride around the neighborhood. I wanted to go to my friend's house. I wanted to go to the playground. And that's the same thing. Anytime you're learning a new skill, not, you're going to maybe take it on the chin, but that's okay. You learned, you're going to be better. And it's that experience. You just have to sort of push that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox
I
because
love
this is really
it.
about you and what you're doing. And I really love the strategy that you're talking about. And what do you recommend that our listeners should do next?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. The truth is for people is I want you to stop and look at where you're at, right? As entrepreneurs, we don't do that enough, right? Where we say, what's the state of the union, right? I always ask, like my partner does this for me all the time. We'll sit down once a week and he's like, what are we really doing, right? Why are we doing what we're doing? And re-answering those questions for ourselves. And the big thing that I would tell you is if you come to the point where you're like, I'm not where I want to be, and that could be revenue wise, time wise, any of those things, I would encourage you to build a platform. It doesn't have to be podcasting. It doesn't have to be YouTube or a blog or anything. You can make it what it is, make it your own. But I would encourage you to start having every single day, having somebody come onto a platform with you. That's the place to start for
Yeah.
everyone because it will solve the time problem. It will solve the money problem. It will solve your visibility problem, your marketing problem, your sales problem. It solves everything if you have a platform and you have a network of people. So I'd highly, highly recommend everybody does that. If you need help with that, you can go to podcastmultipliers.com/steal my business. That has our entire methodology on there. I don't even request an email from it. It's just there as an asset for people to go check out. So that's the best place for people to go.
Well, that's absolutely brilliant. And you
Thank
just
you.
went into how can people find out more about you and where to connect with you. And I'll be sure to include the podcastmultipliers.com, Steal My Business, in the link below. But how else can people find out more about you, Josh?
Yeah, honestly, I'm on theluckytitan.com. That's everything that's our mother brand for everything that we do. So my podcast is there. We're actually building out a whole community of podcasters there as well. So you can see all of their amazing content and get to know them because to be real with you, it's at this point, it's not really about me anymore. It's about how do we get the best people out there. So I do want to just throw this as a question out to you and your audiences. We're looking for the world's 100 best humans to bring together. And so, excuse me, 1,000, not 100. We're looking for the top 1,000 humans on the planet. And if you feel like you are that person or there's somebody else that you know who needs to be that person, those are the people whose voices we're looking to elevate. So that's our number one goal right now is to elevate 1,000 of the world's best humans because there's so much garbage out there right now, so much negativity, and we're looking to
Yeah.
drown that out with valuable content.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. That's brilliant.
Thank
So
you.
we'll include that link down below. And this has been such a great discussion. And for all of you who tuned in, thank you so much. If you have ideas that you would like to share, you can leave us a comment down below. We love hearing from you. And if you have a question or would like to suggest a topic for discussion, you can email us at jointheconversation@petitequeen.com. And of course, to stay current with all of our insightful advice, our breakthrough advantages, you can sign up for our weekly Wisdoms newsletter. And I want to thank everyone who listened. And for Josh, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on, Lynn.